the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born in this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path to sublime reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 ever devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms in all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing. Subdue the faults and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Page 15 for the Heart Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagawan was dwelling on massive Vulture's Mountain in Rajgriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perfection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avagachavara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avagachavara. How should any son of the lineage train to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avagachavara said that to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no eye element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance and no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell on the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagawan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avgachavara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you've indicated. Even the Talikas rejoice. The Bhagawan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shardavadaputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avgachavara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagawan. Page 25 for the mandala. Saji Poke Joche Mito Tram Ray Robling Shane Again Party Sange Jing Duming Teo Agi Jokun Nam Dakshin La Chopasho Jetsun Lama Dampa Kinam Ki Choku Kala Kense Chenjing Jeta Sampe Doje Zin Mala Zabge Choke Chapa Babtu So Iram Guru Ratnam Mandala Kamnayatayami Sange Charan Sakde Charam La Jancho Baru Ragni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyenge Paisonamki Chola Pincha Sange Rupash Sange Charan Sakde Charam La Jancho Baru Ragni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyenge Paisonamki Chola Pincha Sange Rupash Sange Choran Soke Choramla Jancho Baru Daine Kapsuchi Dai Chinyenge Peso Namki Chola Pinchu Sange Drupasho.
So what is the gender in the show? Bandits are no more motion and I will show bandage. Condition bell condition on the goes on to you so why down the Gulon from G. Javata and the church near the Zinda the digit. And the Sheva down, Yamba down, Jurba down, Takan Chiva Samalo. Ne Rani Jibugi. Didn't do actually my body. Rala Kadiji with Sidi, Pamani, Simje, Angela, Pembashi, to actually nature the years and the legislature.
Correcting our motivation, one will listen to this Dharma to know it, to hear it, to study it, to engage in it. All of that, not just for oneself, but solely for the benefit of sentient beings who have been kind, like the parents of this life, to oneself, joining the mind with that concern for them.
하야다 가고 검라 원스틸링 근데 진짜 church 니야게 그거 중반되네 개우선 뭐이 고비하고 이 인체 가고 공부했어
Rejoicing that being able to listen to this class on Dharma is a fortunate opportunity, rejoicing in that opportunity.
하야다 저 니 라왔습니다 셔럽질 라왔습니다 셔럽질 라왔습니다 네 이나네 그럼 셔럽어야 돼 셔럽드 남지기 로스드 셔럽드 남지스 넘버 제와스드 네 지페 내주 임바다 임바 마임바 요바다 요와 매와다 매와 그래서 내당 뭐 내당 치마치 시버치니 칠레니 심정들라 셔럽시고 레스와
Now, looking at training in wisdom that functions to thoroughly analyze phenomena, the individual attributes of it, analyzing the phenomena in such a way that seeing if it's the case or not, if it exists or not, what is the entity of that phenomena? It is the mental factor which functions to thoroughly discriminate that.
그래서 배 뭐지 내주 뭐왜 내주 직 내당 가리나 최대단 되게 인로디 하고 시행인데 니 동네만 오셔지 매우 자주 거래 언제디 메시브 온게 나가서라다 한다 지 동네 요에 참마 자 타도도 메시베 온거 중화디 세월레스 다디 다타고 요레스와
What is clear is that if one can know how things exist in the entity or in reality, let's say, if you know how dharmas exist, then the sufferings we experience can be reduced because we suffer out of ignorance, meaning that we suffer out of unawareness or not knowing how things are.
베나 말한서 내가게 내주 지페 가리는 다신다 파샤니 지 칼라지게 수고를 가르핑규이다 가르뉴게 돼 야고지 수수 신경 말이 미신다게 지 다제 제션주 지금 한도 렌드체는 도되게 그러면 수수라니게 삼노다네 야고 신경면도 알아 아니 맹그릭도 수불을 핑규 뉴고요 아니 다다나가서 찹시기 내주만 보시 핑규 뉴고요 로다데 제자 내가 마시베 안게는 아주 베디 미 고고티 너도디 벌써 그랬다 찹시 버르즈 고고티 아니 미추버르즈 총바르즈 요보라고 차지하면서 다 딩상 총자 켜보 휴지 다 잘라면서 먹었다네 딩상 이 타제간에는 아주 배샤야 텐로야 된대 용거라 다 되죠 아니 다 잘라를 먹어지게 수불라 가져 핑기요 가져 내고에 미시베 안게 피주치야 만타네 강이 되든요디 그래서 사마 단대게지 내가게 강이 춘준인데 야 사마 야고 싶다나 미시벨 되는 총어디 세우쇼레스라
So leaving aside and knowing how other things exist or not, we're obscured from that. just looking at food, we don't even know really what benefits our bodies or not. Oftentimes we just follow, oh, somebody said so, or somebody said that it's the case that this will benefit your body and you follow it. So this can be the case for medicines and also following advice of like politicians. Out of not knowing the way things are, we are at the behest of political leaders, but also we become like a slave to the wealthy, those who do well in business. And these days, online, we're purchasing so many things that really we don't know, that we use a lot, but we really don't know if they'll benefit us or not. So, even though it's small, temporal harms we're getting, underlying it is that we just don't know. Ignorance.
다드네 야지 삼로로지 마 데스 딩사로지 담이나 내가 셈 망보지 셈 툭제 니 용대어라지 용구열들에 또 삼마다 차단을 되네와 초직을 초직을 땅 이어와체네와 이어와 숙청고시었지 다디 이어디 지기요 말해서 거다 낭백에 따로 사과도 티고지면 추년이 지나 지 유궁어 내주게 간에서는 담에이나 뒤제 탐제 미다고 임바지 버렸어 아니 최 탐제 란신디 모두에 동바디 텐중임바디 직버렸어 당연하죠 저 밀을 삼으로 담에이네 저 미임바지 버렸어 네 지금 수고 두시 전에 가서 미임바지 버렸어 다드네 네 지금 둔둘러 삼는 다음에요 김제 가서 대화되제 동의 믿어 임바디 직버렸어 근데 이제 이어체요 말해서 다 연제들과 연제 책 찍을 차 찍을 당세 다 택과 준비 추억이냐는 진이지 연제디 제나다 추이 다提醒个추억 그 다고지 요하면 다 추자래서 봐
And then if we go a little deeper, the mind takes things to be the case where it's not, or you could say the mind hallucinates from these twofold minds of disturbing obscurations, disturbing thought obscurations of attachment and aversion. So then we tend to have strong bias or discrimination one way or the other. And from a context of Buddha Dharma, particularly from the context of the great vehicle, the point is not to have strong partisan attitudes or biased attitudes, because on one level, all functioning things are impermanent, but also from the perspective that all things lack inherent existence or true existence, they are all dependent arisings. Moreover, if we look at people on a human level, we should not have that strong bias because we're all the same shape. And taking it further to animals, we both want to be happy and do not wish to suffer. So really, when we look at it from that point of view, there's no room for this bias or partisan attitude of strong attachment, strong aversion. And if we can't reduce that and diminish it and get rid of it, our practice of the great vehicle will not be quality.
아니 알아서 겨워가지 거네 삼다요나 아니 알아서 어디 뒤준 삼다 검자 삼다스타나 야고라 가르스나 알아서 삼다한다 심기 나네 지 마지바다 망보지요야데 아니 지 심바로지 유진 체제 수수 동의 서비스 소치한 이지치고로 아 동의당아 참아지고 선이디 현다지레스로 수수라 수수 양다고 인베소치로 수수데 내가 가르쳐버디 디베소치 아 동의지스다 만디고지 존나디 현다지레스 당아 말레스로 야메나 녜나 밀어 더요 야메나 가 도보토모 야메나 첩시보라 야메나 롱베 팀 야메나 지 남시 야 칼라로 지리 야러티 칠로로 질파 죽으로 죽제 네 만두스디 파 비자르시게 외오레스 다 상로 야고시 담베이노 아니 겨왕아지게 남샤 지 렌데가 남샤 균데가 남샤 균데가 남샤 렌데가 남샤 상담베이노 수수마지오스니 수수라니레스 봐 수수게 레 겨왕아마레 세데리 레응바치베 되베데 수술미브레스 미주지기 신게 레응바치 요게 되베 만줄레 미야 요마레스 봐
Mhm.
티나다 아니 신지살라 신이 요 주사디 렌데 추베 타와디 용구요레 근데서야 유노 신 동이 먼저 뉴아에는 신 대화대 먼저 뉴아에로 와 티나 산제다 전주선바도 저게 그런게 대화도 심지라 르 짐바 당겨요레 이나 먼저 뇽투고요 말 가르친 먼저 대라 레가 대화요 말어 전주선바도 베 르론저 계자데 제베 대화도 제베 탐제 심지라 르 당겨요다 그래서 키에서가 좋아 나와는 게 르게 니 샤고는 샤기 타고는 타지 이제 가르쳐 왜나 봐 체주스 라기어를 들래 먼저 딜을 nhập투고요 뭐 가서는 대화요 말고 이 유진은 대화치는 매가인데 데비드 롱제 투고요 말어 일단 되게 아니 타도나 수수기 타도나지 고나야지 이제는 수수 랭이 뭐지 베트벨은 대화요 미시지 같이 깨도 여러 가지 깨 여러 다와 깨 여러 다야 또디 수수기 네 엘레진 요데 운영 거를 때 남바게 타둑지그레스로
Mhm. Then coming down to the final view of Buddha-dharma, how a lot of our suffering is behavioral cause and effect. Before we go into that, oftentimes what makes us upset is good to think on, the notion of past lives. Oftentimes when we suffer, we think that it is other related or other caused, and then sometimes thinking, my difficulties come from others, but in the tasks I do, I'm good at it. I'm good at the tasks I do, and the suffering is the fault of either those in the family, those friends, in the political level, in a country law level, or the weather. There tends to be something to point the finger out at. But if we really think in context of past lives, in context of cause and effect in general, but more accurately, behavioral cause and effect, then one experiences difficulties because one had a hand in it, one caused it, and one is experiencing the maturation of those causal factors. And in that light, then others' difficulties can't ripen on you. That cannot be, because they created the cause for that. You created the cause for yours. If it was the case that we could experience others' suffering, then commensurately we could experience the bliss and well-being that others had created the cause to. For example, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, bliss could be transferred to us. Indeed, the Bodhisattvas have given up their body wealth and enjoyments. So they've done all of that, but somehow we can't experience all of that the Bodhisattvas have given up. Well, on a causal level, we didn't create the cause, so that's not going to come to be. So even a headache, we could say we created the cause to experience. But in some sense, condition could be external, but really underlying it, if you look at the Buddha-dharma's final view, we create the cause for that.
지상다 단디 기승은저 참디는 베제디 베제는 디스토션으로 단디 반데 다오다 왜 엄마주고는 아니 요모 꽤나 말이 지도라 달래시면 로이던 다른 디 도시 내저번 다는 거 같이 세상으로 아니 시시 그거 탐제 말루베 짜와데 요모 꽤 말루베 짜와딘지 아니 말루발라라래 그래서 말루 바자도 제월에 되네 총아레스 제가 달래 좀 로이 돈이 전전 인자 먼저 네 대화도 동네 대화 인자 동네 그 자와디 이모디제 말을 말해 딜 거야라 아니 nenjo바데 저기 아니 딜 매버서 같이 요래 미시지 당문에 딜 지제 가기요래서 어디 식으로
Yeah. Then coming back to where we left off last time, there is a quote from Chandakirti on the top of page 68, alluding to the inner foe to be eliminated, seeing with their mind that all afflictions and defects arise from the view of the transitory collection of mind and body as inherently existent I and mine. Yogis, upon realizing that the self is the object of this view, set out to refute that self that appears to inherently exist. So what is recognized as necessary to refute is ignorance and the imprints left over from that incorrect consciousness grasping it to existence, so that, you know, you want happiness, you do not wish to suffer. If that's the case, then you set out to eliminate this ignorance grasping it to existence. Yes.
제가 다든데게 아니 먼저 뉴모기 균다 동해다 이게 자와 연습이 때문에 말이 버려서 다디 도버 제발라 아니 담에 해 도버 제발라 다 리베 줌진 리베 돈에 거시 리베 거시로 kana 먼저 다 기승원저 대 공배를 마셔는데 기승어마 직도 살아다 당보 먼저 뒤제 탐지 미다고 임베 균제 상다 해봐 미다고 임베 균제데 된중 귤레 규단 찐라데네 규단 찐라데네 규부두고요 봐 데우디 귤레 된데 되어요 봐 데우디 니 유메기 제스톤도 치요 같이 데우 귤레 된바디 시에는데 니 규야 데우를 마 된바디 시 제시에는데 먼저 템페나 아시데 당보 미다고 임베 상다 쳐봐 그거들은 신지 뭐 근데 내가 정말 쉬어래 대당 고속서 대가나 삼로 야고지나 아니 정말이지 레용 거래 되네 삼만 매나 다들 믿어고 라야 돼지 나라서 당보지 락버드 삼다네로 알레 지금 뭐 주버도 배나 락버드 삼다니 강바식도야 소로던데 먼저 미시로도 미망고 시도도 다 군가라 미망고 시그냐 군가라 미망고 시도다 진짜 경고만 망고 군가라 통도다 아니 노충아 망고 다 모다 대자셔바다 차라다 된대다 다 된대 거네 뭐미 노충아 망고 아니 딩사도 라시제님 망고도 하다 망고 고용도 안도서 사모다 미다고래다 봐 도저다 미다고래스 등 알아이네 님이지 이마지스나다 정말 돼야래서 당보 작바디 시험 좀 그래서
So all of the afflictions one experiences, the causes of, you know, the cycle of existence and so forth, recognizing that the root of that, all of that suffering, the afflictions, I mean, aforementioned, and the faults they have, comes from this unawareness or ignorance, grasping it to existence. So then that has to be uprooted or gotten rid of with the understanding of non-self. Now, cultivating that has to have a reasoned approach, step by step. As we went through previously these meditative steps, by beginning with reflecting that all compound things are impermanent, all compound things are a product of cause and conditions, so that you have a result. But, you know, before that, you have to have a cause. The cause gives rise to the result. So that level. And then you focus on the fact that we ourselves are impermanent and going through change. And when you can begin to start with these levels, then later deeper things come, meaning that you start with the grosser level of change, impermanence, houses, people passing on, and particularly in winter, people die more. Young people often die in accidents, car accidents. Some die because they're, have alcohol habits and so forth, and there are suicides. So all of that's important in the context of thinking, me too, one day, I will also die. So then all will go that way. So one is beginning with this gross understanding of impermanence first. That's very important.
수수 나세니 타고로 되는 거지. 삼색도 나스데다 타고 그저 대하면 저 수직이 소다서야 면결 없이 다가라래 나타고 다주되와.
And then that sense of I we have appears like such a kind of solid thing that never changes. It's permanent, like a blob.
뭐네즈디 제르무진 추보와다 지고를 미루데 미세 추보와데 룽지견아 그 추보 매차로다 하나지 아주 밀라데 툭슬레 로면다 와 툭지 남산에 지겐 튼두지 춘주지 와 네 직시야 겐로 지 두즈르질레도 겐 춘주지레 보면도 안 되와.
Yeah. So although that I can appear solid and unchanging, Lama Tsongkhapa says it's like water bubbles. It just meets with a little bit of wind and it puffs out. And we humans are like that. We just meet with a tiny condition and we're gone, vanquish.
다 치왕에 남징이 메디 삼당과의 계심으로 해서 알아서 담아 진도망고니 예지 당 알아서 최치고의 신기어로 와.
Yeah.
예, 치외세 최면도 강의점에 회마디 먼저 신기어다. 하고 삼루스탄다 다라레 신기어래. 아치 최치고의 신기어래다. 와. 아니 디버제나다 동해요의 신기어래다. 다 이나디 신기래 양아도 지 인공광계다 지 최치야데 반장씩 아니 지 내가 미개월어들래 양고 양자 체된 거로 연대기로
habit.
디 가르쳐내 연구래라디다 남징임에 상당요 말아
Yeah.
봐 가두치 하고요 말해 니 집에서 최고면도 강기 재면데 최대잖아 남징임에 상당은 최 다단이니 치고 와서 봐 저 전화 단단한 식으로도 있다. 미시지게 대산이 나니세나. 아니. 요아멘도스잖아. 예, 공단도 배드메게네. 산산나나스니 교용어스로. 다쳐산이 나니 지거스는 아니 지걸라버데 교지 그랬어. 두베 마체나스로. 두베 여러분도 두베도 아니 두베게 지거르면서 내가 개박에는 두베 줘야 말 동간데 샤는도 거로. 내장스 뒤 동간소로 동간 강바디 샤는도 그러네. 강바 개박은 줘야 말아봤어. 제상 시도도 현다 파스 샤네로 봐. 수수 류디 샤는 줘야래스. 제가 줘야지 남시 지고 윤데 마줘야래스. 디가는 개베 바자디 치는 줘야래스. 때문에 지금 기야 찍하요 말았어. 성도하다데 어딘데 섬다는데 신다하게다 되게 지 개점으로 쇼지 그래서야서 미드즈 지 개점으로 지딩여들래 닝지게로 아지 다디 보고 신주나지 거러지 거대도 상자로 닝지든데 거는 수수sem나나 닝글래야 미션은 닝지여야다 수수이나 아니 지 최선이 되거나다 로초고도 가도이네 디싱 수지래요나 아니 최 부타고 용야다 최 다다니네 지야요 근데 그다 내가 전부를 했더라.
So we've had these teachings a lot, and we're also aware that death is definite, its time is uncertain, and then because of that, we should do Dharma. And, we are, in a sense, because we've come to class a lot, we know how to practice Dharma. We know that from non-virtues comes suffering and so forth. What is it then that might make us put off practicing Dharma? Or always do non-virtues, be used to doing them. The fact is we're not sure when death will come. well, death is definite. If you really know death is definite, you will practice, but if you're uncertain of its time, you'll do it now and you won't put it off. Because as one great Lama said, we don't know what will dawn first, tomorrow or the next life. And then what has to occur then is like a guest staying at a guest house, but then having to move on. Here, one moves on only with the good and negative imprints on the mental consciousness. The body is left. That's the only thing, nothing left to carry. And when we understand that, we look at people involved in or sidetracked in non-dharmic things, and when one might see them like children, one might see them as someone to be compassionate for. So these are the points that makes the mind turn toward Dharma, not only in the sense that your Dharma is quality, but you do it now because you understand the impermanence.
Oh, yeah, that. Today, in New Zangala, today, that, Midagwa some of less nana, and Tunde Namsha thing you Tunde Namsha thing you yes nana, and Shindu also. Tenjung la de la Kwaji Niger, Chilajic Dene Chore, so. The Nambege. A day, Susu Simna Lang is new and do any Susu Tanda don't beg my son, and banded out of a son, Jeremy Chin son. Shan Jodi, Tanzu Susu Tobache. A pair will need to long as some logic time in the bay. Other rigor, well, Condu Conanzu soon said it, Tanzu Samudan, that did to do over the hard wear, well. Jig to dinner over Taje, Sim Javache, Lena lives at the Tahar Chikwa Lego, Tongbani said the Dona, Monzu, Simjig Tobatan, Sanjay Tobatan, Pablo Tobati, Kantoya Tombani, the Chibuji Yara, tell them all a year. Simjig Doya Tombani, the Shindara Jeda, Chansi Pablo Doya Tombani, the Shindajada, Sanja Pablo Doya Tombani. Tombani is Chikbore, Conde Chu Tanje Rashi to Tombani. Chikpa Chikyari Michi, Dela Yawache Yamara, Chesan Dela Tajeche, Tingeva, Nye Tratu, and Disuni, Tumba de la Yijili, Tanzo, the Perishas, Atara Resta, Une Reshata, Chik. When is the Mishi on the Midi, and Chotam Dene Chuma Resha, Dene Majuni, Chu Jemindo, Motam Jenny, Judan Divinam Shadina Resha, Tia, Jik Sauruna. Lendenamsha led the Shian, this Kalekaware, Lelaway, Tumbani, Lendenamsha Tachitawa, the Kalekaga, the Kajeta, Tumbani Kaga, the Lendenamsha Lelhouse, and Lendenamsha Kalekaga. Do some down the Nambeg, Tangnambe Chu, Money, some down, the Neganta, two sen, and I will put up a child or restaurant.
Then the mode of reflecting from the point of view of being a Dharma practitioner or on Buddha Dharma in a quality way, one thinks on impermanence, cause and effect, then dependent arising. All phenomena are dependent on each other, interdependent. And one starts to get, conviction, ascertainment? Yeah, a definite conviction in this, that what Shakyamuni Buddha set forth, what Chandrakirti set forth, what Lama Tsongkhapa set forth, you hear about that, then you reflect on it, and then you come to your own conclusion as they taught and set forth exactly accords with reality. You get that resolve, Drupdun. Yeah, you conclude that meaning. So, and not only that, you get that meaning, you come to see that what is to be realized for sentient beings, what is realized by Aryas, what has been realized by Buddhas is exactly the same, that these things and events lack intrinsic nature in terms of reality. So therefore, you are doing this checking But then you have to come to this definitive conclusion yourself. And when you reach that conclusion, your faith in the founder, in the teacher Buddha, increases. So you go through this approach, impermanence, dependent arising. Firstly, that there's causality on an outer level, and you trace back to a more subtle level of behavioral cause and effect or karma. And then you understand that the subtle workings of that karma are more difficult to conclude than emptiness, to understand. But this is the way you go about studying and engaging in Buddha Dharma in a quality manner.
다디 컨데기 답에 딘중 남샤디 니지 군데기 딘중 차셰레 덴베 딘중 스당도 루 먼저 나란저 나스니디 군데라로 가서 파말라 덴바도 싱고로 류데즈레 덴바 싱고로 칼라라 덴 칼라를 되어요 남시 되어 류젤레 되어요 어디 싱고로 먼저 대 유지리 되어라 다 차셰 뒤냐발랑도 강바라고 닝차바 도졸레다 되어요 받는다 저들라 디네 투데도 나세 아데 마상로 따는데 간상진에 남배게 따둔나래 망고지게다 데 도스 두두사시 도스 나스니데 가제게 수부무크라는 말이샤스 가제게 초와데 풍보데 포몽아데 말이샤스 가제게 데레멘도스 이기남시데 말이샤스 마텐 따지시와 다도 근데 텐지베게 따와도나라 근데 누구수지라고요 말다 뭐 탐제는다 뭐 탐제 누수 민감지 파다는 민감지 민대 파 로그 파 수신 요즘에 유코랑 원에서 유주고는 원에서 배나 모다도 상단 배약셔지 모다디어 모다세야디 나란즈선은 도와시도 도도가 두디에 여마라 모다코랑 파직 차셔를 누구조나 모다신이 저는 이주메된 것이 야 모다 여마르스는 여랑도 모다 사와 여러 모다 닝고 여랑도 모다 뇨고 여러 모다 땅고 여러 로 다 민감제요 다 되나시 안도 족제 퍼와 아니 미로 먼저 미래 가리나 고배 민감제를 해미셔지게 대 민간다에서 이제 다들 차셔야 되라 대중 차셔야 방고 대중수니 남샤데 심나가 과지를 해보시고 땅에 뒷만 망볼라를 쓰라
So then approaching from the perspective of Buddha Dharma dependent arising, from that level of cause and condition, and then that things are made up of parts. And using as a reference point this notion of I, that some of the I is dependent on the parents coming together on a physical level, that we eat food and are affected by the weather and so forth, these conditions, but also that the eye is made up of parts, the form, the limbs, the organs, and so forth. So, and then when that analysis is done a little bit deeper from the perspective of Buddha Dharma, we check all of the reference points, beginning with the form, physical form. Some people think the form is the I. Some people think the five aggregates is the I. Some people point to the mental consciousness and say, oh, that is the I. Doing this thorough analysis and investigation, what is the I? But then we come to the perspective of the Madhyamika Prasangika, middle way consequentialists, who say, really, there's nothing. There's no reference point we can point to and say, that is the I, because it exists in mere name. It is just merely designated. And we can take that across the board for all phenomena. Easiest example of which is the car being made up of parts. So when we examine the car, whole and individual parts, we can't find it. We're not saying the car is non-existent. We still have new cars, old cars, we still purchase them. But we can still conclude that all phenomena exist in mere name. So this approach of things being dependent arisings is very important.
다 응원이 주디 근데 대화차든 요즘에 쉬요 말에 인ang 안저 셈나라 난 당보 딱베다 세시다고 그러고 나스디 당보 대 당보 딱베다 대간 상무지단은 아니 야고요 딱배 다스 가라고서는 나 계산하게 나 근데 dun장 외면 나다 드린 아니 거 찍었다 그도 다 롱아마데 다 배제 가시에다 춘주강에 나대 나이 텐데게 그러러 단지 숙차 아니 되네 다 다른 쇼괴에 나대 단대 아니 찍고 당게 진짜야 마음 공 나다 단대 아니 것도 찍었다 그도 데이터 단지 다들 맞지 지금 맞지 찍도 좀 봐. 찍부 찍기한 따들. 딱 봐서 가도 있는 요된 줄어. 제가 단대 나대다. 단기가 나대. 또 찍고 빼나 되나지 퍼버디네. 다른 쇼에 퍼버다 단대 퍼버디 찍버라고 정도 이지치기로 봐. 근데 다들 레드 파시 체인잖아. 딱 봐. 짐버라고 당지로 봐. 당연히 내주디 되말아. 내주디 계지 요르베란 신지를 미시지. 근데 대대된 요지큐는 요 말아 봐. 어디 뭐 내주다 아니 스스싱이 이지지지 짐반이디 로가도 되고 되는 록시에서 록바 유메와 어디라고 알아
Yellow lock shit. So in reality, then one has to be able to see the connections between things in terms of interdependence. But for us, when we go through the valid way things are interdependent, first we have this notion of the I that appears to the mind that's permanent. You think you're the same person you were yesterday or even last week, or that just came to class. And some people have such a strong grasping at permanent I, they think they're the same person they were then when they were a child, or even they were at breakfast this morning or just came to class. The notion of clinging to permanent I is that you always stay like that or you're always the same, much like we look at this cup and think it's the same cup that it was yesterday. So this grasping at permanence is not reality, invalidated by the fact that these things are momentarily changing. So that is a wrong consciousness, a consciousness that engages in its object on appearance level, when in reality it exists in another. And there's no object like that.
제가 록시세 베나만서 아니 춘왕에 나와디 먼저 나오네래 된거도 나와샤 이 나오네래 되나 춘왕 나와디 나와 말아 내가 하고다 근데 나시 지 미시 공부시 잡으면은 아니 가르가보다들이 가르도 공부 통도 알아 아니 대 먼저 가르 공부를 해야 되는데나 가르 공부 열어서는 요 말아 가르가 가도 어디 까버리 되라 제가 대 록시에서 유매워질래 요 나와들 짐바들어 제가 어디 딱 가르 가도 어디 까보 나제 까보 지는데 그 된도 듬바라고 가르가도 까버리 아니 데 된다 듬바들어 된다 미디움 버디 가르가도 공부 짐바 미시 공부 시작이나 아니 동공부 동부다 어디 록시에서도 어디를 여러
Erroneous consciousness, erroneous engagement, the mistaking the reflection of the moon and water to be the moon. And we know if we put on sunglasses, look at a snow mountain that could look like the snow mountain is blue, or we think it is. So in that case, we've taken a non-existent to exist. That's wrong consciousness. It's okay if you see the white snow mountain is white, but when you put on the glasses and see it's blue and think it is so, that's a low lock share. That's an incorrect consciousness.
And also there are some new people and I think a little bit hard to lose the Dhamma vocabulary meanings, what they're talking, what this, no idea, For me, when I was young, first when Lamrim teaching in the Daewoo Monastery, again Lamrim Monastery, he's teaching. I think that time, I think precious humanity, but he's talking. I just only one word I know, is the an ocean. Example, ocean. Ocean, no. And then later coming to India, in Dharamsala, I went to Dharamsala. I received His Holiness Dalai Lama teaching. And looks, sound is lots, blah, 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 like that. And then, oh, water, oh, flower, blah, 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 blah. I have no idea what is the impermanent, what is the emptiness, what is bodhicitta, what is samsara. So the words is not really clear heard, and I just blah, blah, sound like that. It looks talking, English talking for me, new beginning. I think some people exactly same experience. And they think, I don't know, then I don't. Some people easy to give up. It takes time, Learn, especially class is very good. One word, two net, maybe you learn 2-3 words. Impermanent, emptiness. Emptiness learn the big words, isn't it? Right? And wisdom. And then, one day you're learning Dhamma vocabulary 1 or 2. Then 1 month you will learn 30 Dhamma vocabulary. Or once a week, maybe 2-3 times, 3 vocabularies. And then it build up your understand Dhamma vocabulary. They not easy understand this words. Therefore, you need to start learning meaning, the reading those books. As a start is the best to understand. Then when in Sarah, 6 months started this debate class. And then 6 months later, I went to go back to in Dharamsala, and I received His Holiness Dalai Lama teaching. Then I know impermanent, and then very exciting. What is the impermanent? And then 1 year later, again, then laws of vocabulary is meaning understood. And then I realize or recognize or start as helps laws understand, build out your wisdom. And I think this is for me. I think classes is very important. 근데 제가 그 취직이 책도서 라라고 인지 시험에서 이제 취직 거에 겨요 말이야. 취직 책도 배트 로가지요. 그런 도단 배트 로가요. 직직버직 야이네요. 깝깝깝깝 그 저자 둔다 주르고 그래. 취직 천다저도.
It's different knowing kind of normal vocabulary from Dharma vocabulary, not just knowing it at its meaning level, but that some words change in context. Dharma words.
Bena 동반이 있어야 돼. 두다 심산배 동반이 있어야. 엄마는 유외 동반이 있어야.天유외 동반이 있어야. 책 동반이 다 나는데 봐. 단다 배 로가.
Yeah, so just this word emptiness or voidness, meaning something different from mind-only perspective, middle way autonomy perspective, middle way consequentialistic perspective. It's really right there.
그래서 학원 망주 직도도 된다 직시해 사람이 항마시에 겨야 말고 까벅까벅까벅이 된다데 유르고 그렇잖아. 이인데 난줄 없진시에 레로 요 말에서 김전대로.
And that's why it is said it's not easy to study Buddha Dharma, because whilst one term means something at one juncture, at the second juncture it changes, at the third again change. So different meanings.
근데 땅은 저 깝딜라. 근데 깝디다 가르쳐 버스나. 등이 가상하게 다 딱바드 까로. 다 간사다 딱바에는 간상 가르스나. 간상 미다 가르스로. 아래. 미다 가르도 주어두고도 안 하는데. 개베 둥이 나베 둥이 두가 그거는 개도 와라. 팀 미다고면은 개베 동에 지고에면도 알아봐. 개도 뒤에 밀 개베 동에 숙청도 와. 이제라서 로티다 로랍토면도 같이 개베 동에 자라. 아, 야츠 로 야츠리 사실은 over the 50s 아주 over the 60s 개면도 로랍션은 개면도 같이 심난데라. 개베 동에디 요사 로랍토고요 뭐. 제가 네 뭐뭐게 더 나와. 뭐 니지 들어와. 딱과 있는 개버디 연구 말아. 그래서 딱과 많이 전 개버디 또 가죠. 디인데 미다고래도 와서야 돼. 콘베다. 칭칭보래 봐.
It's an important point, impermanence, because in the context of realizing the non-self of persons, we have to negate permanent person, the notion that I is permanent, when in fact it is impermanent because you get sick. You say, I'm sick. Well, the fact that you get sick is due to impermanence. And then as we go through the aging process, we go up above 50 and we say, oh, I'm getting on. And you don't want to say that's the suffering of aging. So that's the reality that we are impermanent. It's, that's a countermeasure to thinking we're permanent.
다 리슝이 쳐봐. 또 있는 긴고도 로라벨라 페포야를 와. 로친 보이나 그런 냠뇽다. 이 미드즈 다 찬조 지야지 거로 와. 되게 아니 개외적으로 안기디 로그 안기디 티샤. 굽지단 봐. 자단 봐. 자단니 자단 숨사던데. 자야 신사는 이제 둘로 가고 싶고. 근데 간라 자단니 자단 숨 별로 어디래. 근데 티그래. 와. 안기 티지. 안기 거는데 로코는 티지. 밀레 땡게다. 디아 리슝을 개와도 와.
Yeah.
그래서 리슝 가져야 돼. 개와도 와.
Then sometimes in culture, that view of age is approached differently. In Tibetan culture, we think that if we're old, we have more experience or wisdom or courage. So we're quite happy to say, I'm 90, 101, 102, 103. We even make a label of it and wear white clothes and so forth. Yeah, and then the numbers there. 101.
And
some take a photo opportunity around that.
아니 미다고치 와다 단에 딱 풍부 먼저 딱 할삼당 거래 나도 주어들 두고도 이나야 풍부다 저 매진 여기 아직 주어도 있어라 데메든 신기 다시 풍부다 전신배 다지 다들 먼저 이지치기요 이지체 지나 때 간단한지 rak버래 와
So the eye changes, doesn't it? The eye is impermanent, but then there can be a notion of a kind of eye that doesn't depend on the aggregates. And, that's also a gross clinging to eye, a gross self-grasping.
다티네 아니 삼로징아 선단데 베데 로단 인델 되면요 그러나 유증원에서 배 자단 버두딘 저러지 나와지샤 베나만서 이제 남르단데 나르드 풍불라 되면은 저게 아직 사두고요도 나와셔도 풍부 주저대 아마 사두고요도 아니 미지기 지글롱든데란데 미롱란세 미데베 독자 쇼지요 나오러 샤고다 거라 말라 저ችን 매든 저르시 표저디 쇼지 나오셔야 요 롱란데 내가라던데 나와셔도 어딘데게 강가 되메게 다 자자로 거는 자자자단 법에 유코랑 원에 주투된 요소로지 로 이지제 데 아니 진스난데 간상 단지 담모래서
Then a more subtle appearance of a self of persons that is appearing kind of like almost like 100% innate. For example, if you're on a plane, the body stays up, but there's a notion of this eye falling when you hit turbulence, or someone that you don't know suddenly flares up and gets angry at you, then this non-dependent eye kind of appears intrinsic or 100%. That's more subtle.
다 딘데게 간상 다디 메고들 간상 다메스진라고 하다.
Yeah, so, but the non-existence of either of those levels of invalid self is the non-self of person.
다 되나시 포바디 아니 유 자자다면 유중원에 두된지 요 말했을때 포바 담바드 동아데 텔 추다메스라고 하다.
Yeah, and also understanding that the cup doesn't exist. It does not truly exist in 100%. It doesn't exist from the side of the object. And that is the lack of self of phenomena.
어디 딘데지 간상기 담에 두지 릭바 갑딜라다 디네시 릭바사데.
Yeah, Nishi Kundula.
네네로다 네시 릭바레도.
Yeah.
네시 릭바다 딘데 간상기 다 데서래. 메요 말레스 메베 김제 카레스나 요나 덴버트베 찍디요 그레스. 당보 네시 릭바데 카레스나 가정에 베네. 아델라 차왕에 베네 찍데딩에 베네 투데딩에 베네 송도 아드좀 곰잡디 당보 찍데디 삼 투데디 삼 네 차와 삼단 다다 두고 그러와 근데 내가 자야 말 시단에 차와진 게 상당히 차와진 거 인기로 합니다. 네 가서래 당보 가정에 베네 서와 가자 가래라디 하나 되면 다디 가자체 다 데려와디 아니 템베 찍데디 메 템베 투데디 메 직대면 투대면 제주 숨조성아 다드네 덴베 찍단 덴베 두면 덴바메 캡스디 차왕에 웬네스 어딜라야 네시리과 다디 다메 두지기 리바 베 게라 첨보레라 대삼노 냠네 그램바 남르 치면나레 디 디고여라 단다디 디 겨울무신 차르데나
Kishlagi Jodang Yangira Ditis Logare Kunduna.
디레다 차왕에 웬네 디 타마데샤는 다그래 당고 차왕에서는 아니 직대등에 투대에 도가메와 차왕에서라니
Ale Nipa Ditama Dichena.
어디
Okay. So then, in His Holiness goes on to say, to ascertain the selfness of persons, it's important to base on these four essential points. We have been through them before, page 68. And although they're set out in the following manner, the second one, which is the essential of ascertaining the entailment of emptiness, can actually be put last. So first you go for this, the essential of ascertaining the object of negation, and then it, if it were to exist inherently, it would either be inherently one or inherently different, or unitary or plural. And then you conclude finally that it is empty.
대단데 나디 어디 찍디 예선도 다단 시명외에 다 양다반에 제과다 두메런신데 라시메디 순이신스 다드고요라
Yeah.
네 가장 다디 네 요마레스 메베 김된 가레스나 데모드베 찍 데모드베 투마 요마레스 안 데모드베 찍다 데모드베 투마메나 데모 메베 차브레스 페나 멜로나 지신이 순이 되와 멜로나 지신 순이디 ando 시고난 게 돈데 여러베로 멜로나 지신세야 돼 시고난 게 돈데 시고난 게 돈데 돈문에르베 말와 그래서 시고난 게 돈데 돈이나 야면은 동바직 동바니 용거와 동바직단 동바니면은 동바메베 캡으로와 지산데 송이 나와 잠을 미시지 시고난라 미기 동바 통자를 미시지 나와 잠지를 미시지 뭐였는지라 요 말와세 베티나지 아니 먼저 가는 데메게 다디 가자체 티 덴버트와 요나 덴버트베 찍 요나 덴버트베 찍 덴버트베 찍 덴버트베 투마 하로 요거레스 다 덴버트베 찍으면은 투마 요 말와 찍으면은 니 요 말와 덴버트베 찍다 덴버트베 투마면은 다 덴버 메고레스 차와딩이로도 진짜 인자 디 단다 리버디 송 다데
So once one does this analysis of the one and the many, one concludes then if the self is lacking true existence or inherent existence as a unit, then it can't exist inherently as many. So if it's not the one or many, then we conclude that it completely lacks intrinsic nature, which is the final assertion, ascertaining the entailment of emptiness, that second point. Similar to the reflection in a mirror, the face appears in the mirror. It's just appearing there. If it were to exist there as a face, it would either be, there as a one face, inherently one or inherently many. But when we look for it, we can't find it being inherently one face because it's just a mere reflection, a mere appearance. So if it cannot be merely one face because it's a reflection, then we're not going to find it in a plural manner. So then we conclude if it's not unitary or plural, then we can ascertain that conclusion that it lacks true existence.
어디다 이제 된다디나라 진주나라 따병을 말이봐 대응을 말이셔야 돼 가정에 ven내식으로다 그렇다.
Yeah. So in terms of Shantideva, we read, without contacting the imagined existence, its non-existence is not apprehended. So the importance of ascertaining the object of negation.
그래서 다들 유용도 동의 있어야 돼. 간동야게 동시디 뭐마수나나 간동야 동의도 또 말했어. 배나 말하면서 간 가야게 가제다. 그래서 다들 니샤오래. 단예대회 다다 가제다. 그래서 단예대회 다들 가려서는 미다고래. 유견을 총어래. 민견다에서니 딘중으로스. 호께와단 지구와단 가와단 나와단 잡아치기 요래스. 다 가제다디 아니 스스로게 먼저 추나게 나와셔야 될 소리 좀 해주지 요말하다. 추나 나와셔 빼. 가제다디 추나 나와셔나. 추나 나와 요말아. 가제다디 가서 생나라야. 스스로 차된 요지. 스스로 로배원 파장인배 온게. 유추나 이거 온게 아니 야 간라 되면게 다 지금 나와셔야지. 다디 나와셔야 될랑도 이지시제. 아니 진대위나 안 단지 차로 걸어. 뒤 단지디 온게 나도 차고지 당와지. 요모 상모 어두스천이 용거래서 왔다.
So then, ascertaining the lack of true existence, we have to understand the object, what is being negated, because there is a conventional I and kind of like an invalid I. The conventional I is the one that is, a product of cause and conditions, dependently arisen, finally, exists in mere label, mere name. The invalid I, to be negated, is like mistaking the moon and water for being the moon. It doesn't exist. It appears to our mind as if the I exists. So what we do is we erroneously apprehend it. And independence of that erroneous consciousness apprehending an inherent I, we cling to the appearance, and the commensurate desirous attachment and aversion ensues. In short, all of the disturbing thought obscurations come from that.
다든지 다디 간라드미게 다지나 안텔라 템버투레스 템버스야디 아니 군조마이게 간라드미게 아니 양가와지 라 템버싱노레스 티요나 직 야메나 투마요 베나가도 베샤 유나 가도 고무직 고무니요 고무직면은 고무니요 고마르바 아래 베샤 유나 야메나 고무직이요 야메나 고무니요 고무요나르바 고무직면은 니요싱 마르바 당고직디 까오다 뭐르베 직메베 줌생 카레라데 아니 템버르베 직이나 참이 양가와지 하나 뜨미게 양가와지 용으로스 데레멘도 다 가이나 줄에 차를 째든죠 직직을 떠든죠. 직을 대든죠 좀 지금 데메든 신게 양가와 지민도 대단 데려와디 데마트와 매위 데마트와 찍도 매위 균진데 차제의 미 균진 거와 참에 민도
Discord.
와
Yeah, negate unit.
tin닝저요.
The first conclusion of negating the unit is actually quite beautiful because it's negated because it does actually depend on parts. If we think that the I is a non-dependent thing, so what we're recognizing here is the invalid I to be negated. So if you think that the I is a non-dependent thing and is truly existent, then we have to look at it, at its relative nature, at its solidity. So if it were to exist autonomously, inherently, it could only exist as the one unit or latter than one, plural or many. We take the example of money. You have $1. You have to, you can only have $2 if you have the one. So this is like the one and many reasoning here. Now, if that's the case, then first you examine the one, you examine the unit. But the unit cannot be autonomous or non-dependent because the unit itself is made up of parts. So then you've negated the unit's autonomy. So it depends on its parts, so it lacks inherent or true existence. The one.
당고 데마트와 찍가.
Yeah, what you're negating first is the person's unitary nature.
찍매의 균진데 차제를 샤서 찍요는 참에 연구를 했어.
Yeah, and it's negated because that unit is made up of parts. And the moment you have a whole or a unit of something, it is part dependent.
다 데마트와 찍면은 두마다 이용 말아. 이면 두마스야 돼 이제를 두마스 걸어와. 데마트와 찍면은 데마트와 두마민도 없다.
So if you can't find under analysis anything that's inherently one, then of course you can't find something that's inherently two.
데마트와 찍다 데마트와 두마면은 데마 매고레스 저항해 봐도 다다 리기도 하대.
Right. And then when you've concluded that if it doesn't exist inherently as one, or latterly because of that, inherently two or many, then that's that point we're going for, the essential ascertainment of the entailment of emptiness.
다 딘데시라 상담 도움은 아니 송예신 있어야돼. 배드 상담해요. 송예
Yeah.
배나서 멜로나 시골로 동바다들 인도 시골나라 동바 난거도 와. 시골나 동바 여러 배스나 이 말하려 그러와. 장안서 칸을 되면 다된 거 system로 나한테 그래. 나와나 진짜 요 말해서 어디래다.
If that's difficult for us, we can reflect on the reflection of our face in the mirror and ask, is the reflection of our face in the mirror the face? No, it is not. Similarly, the non-dependent I appearing to our mind is like that.
어디 리베트업지 간사게 담에 두지 리바스 다 당모 간사게 담에 또 그래. 간사 담에 도는 쭉 담에 또야 딜레라고 저거라.
Yeah, so these are the reasons we use to approach the understanding of the non-self of persons, the lack of intrinsic nature of persons. And then once we have obtained that, realized that, then the realization of non-self phenomena is easier.
어디 담에도 왜 셰럽스타 셰럽 질라베나게 다 셰럽 저저 되어들다.
Right, so then we talk about wisdom, or the wisdom consciousness realizing emptiness. That really is that discriminating intelligence, isn't it?
야, 나 좋아해요.
Question.
No question. Then we stop here. Online.
Is there anybody out there?
Aşağı.
Inherently separate from me, sorry.
Hadi 3B were listening.
Three people. Three, okay.
No emptiness online.
Is there an echo? Sorry.
Okay.
Step one, visual window, thank you, window.
Mơ dễ dòng xế mê đào đá, rê ra lên xế nhìn đế giam bà. San ye xin đế mì đế ơ vá yê, đô gơ năn đá xin lá chê bà rá shù. Rê ra đên xin, nà gà trên lê chô chô kê vá tán, ngā sā tēn đế đô mê sā sā. Ô vē mê sē đá đô nē yö jī. Ý đá gô rơ gā nē mē đē lā gā nē yā đá yā nē. Yo di nge de da lama san je tu ji je to wa chi jam le wa ti za ma ko shi. Je sim je ma shi ma de ba na ji shi je wa ya wa na wa shi ko ne ko ne pe wa ra shi. De wa na shi sha wa da ji je ren ko ye ko ye ko wa je da yi ji da ma le ko be so se chi ma. Chi ya wa da me chi de ma be wa na ge ye za ma je wa na de me ma le ma shi da da shi da de ni na. Yo la da da wa ye de ma ye ne wa ye.
Victoria slams out on 3 times, perform the one self-esteems. Maybe somehow was later down publish. Maybe it's not to satisfied and all produce of circumstances being complete. The wish granted for your source of every single benefit and in the world. They are in the power of the time to say that for the siege. May all the holy payments. Thank you, so, teachings and tracks by great beings. Extremely clear, powerful communication and information. The words of visions in that side and siege. My own holy visions of payments will through. You are called the supers all the way. And service of honor for the home. Protecting, preserving, and creating our victorious doctrine. Remarkably accomplished magnificent prayers, honor, and truth. David, myself, and others who were disciples, players of all. By relying on the accumulation for myself and others of the 3 times. May the teaching of the conqueror love and drop all life for a long time. And these were 3 times faithful on the Hail as teacher and thing that is within the treasure. Scrawled and the word, victorious all the same father. Victoria's one's teaching. The soul had way through which all benefits of having a separation. Ways of what you built the children of the victorious ones. I was smart with the incarnation of the beginning and glory of fortune. Sorry.
Good night. What? Yeah, presentations. We can make.
Then it gives us a couple of.
No. We can make this.
Okay.